So welcome everybody. This is my first endeavor doing my little series here. And for my first guest, I'm having somebody who I would call the consummate performer, because just giving him one label doesn't do him justice. Anyway,
Wow.
Skip Cunningham. How you doing, Skip?
Hey, Hank, how are you? Nice to see you.
Yeah, because just calling you a tap dancer or whatever I don't think is does you justice. Because I have a feeling your idea was to perform, right, and share what you
Well,
had, right?
there's a little story behind that, and
Mm,
and basically, that's right. I didn't want to be just a tap dancer, and there was an influence to that, and so I could sing when I could dance as a
mm,
kid.
mm.
But the older I got, and the further I got into the career, I realized I needed to put them both together. In doing so, I compromised both. My singing compromised my tap dancing, and my tap dancing compromised my singing. Because in the performance per se, sometimes it would go an hour. If I did something very fast or strenuous or athletic, I didn't want to not have enough breath to sing a ballad.
Mm.
So I trained myself to be able to supposedly be out of breath as far as the audience was concerned,
Right.
but I'd be able to drop right into a ballad and get attention, able to sustain notes after I did it. So I personally took pride in doing it, being able to master that myself. And that's
Wow.
what slid me into being a performer rather than just walking out and doing a fast 3 minute tap routine opening a show.
Yeah. And actually, one of the things I was thinking about is, was there any kind of particular, you got to be in shape to do all of that, right? So was there any
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of training you did outside of just dancing, or, because there's the voice, right? There's the physical, there's learning techniques. Was there any kind of regimen or something you did to kind of keep you in shape?
I had a regimen, but it wasn't so much working out. I never worked out,
Mm-hmm.
and I stopped practicing.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped practicing once I started singing because within the performance, I would change my mind in the
Ah.
performance. So then I became improvisational. And that was the bridge to being an entertainer rather than just a tap dancer.
Mm.
And in doing so, I was able to work pretty much all the time
Mm.
on in person performers. General Artists Corporation that I was with when I was in New York, um, they liked that. Sometimes it got in my way because if they wanted me to open a show for somebody really famous, if that person was a singer, they didn't want me to sing.
Mm.
They'd want me to just dance. And I kind of held my own with that. I did not want to get out of the mode of becoming a headliner myself.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to acquiesce to being in that bag because that's in my mind, that's where I was headed. So
Mm.
if I couldn't open for them, then that's just a gig I missed.
Mm.
So I'm kind of admitting to you in the moment what my thinking was at the time.
Mm.
And I satisfied myself with that because
Yeah.
there were many places where I did headline.
Mm.
The thing is, I was traveling a lot. A lot of the jobs I had were out of the country. I would do a tour of South America from one on down one side and up the other, and I was still the only one on the stage when I would perform. That was a mental thing that I had regarding myself. I just wanted that space on the stage to do anything I wanted to do.
Mm.
You know,
Wow. So it all began in Chicago, right?
yep,
Chi-town is the
born
beginning.
born and raised there.
Wow. And what are some of your earliest memories of Chicago in terms of your neighborhood or family or, those beginnings?
Well, I'm able to do a retrospective on it now. And when you ask the question, I have to think how I was thinking in the moment. I had a great upbringing.
Mm.
It was a small community in Chicago, way out on the south side. Did you ever see Raisin in the Sun?
Oh yeah, I saw the movie. I never saw the play, but I saw the movie.
Well, Claudia McNeil and Sidney Poitier, when they were hassling about that money, what they were going to do with the money when they got it, and the mother wanted to move out of the South Side where she was, and I
Mhm.
always felt that that community was Morgan Park, which was where I was living,
Mm.
because that was a typical neighborhood that they were talking about.
Mm.
And as a child, it really all started when my mother put me on the streetcar one day. In those days, that was the first transportation I knew anything about publicly, and took me to 5419 Calumet, what was then Bronzeville and the south side of Chicago, to a lady by the name of Sadie Bruce. She was
Mm.
my first teacher because when I went to see her, it was simultaneously with kindergarten. So
Mm.
that's when I started.
Mm.
And she was my first mentor. And she put me on the track, the right track of getting to where I was trying to go. And I can never, ever forget her
Wow.
because, and now she had a sister in New York by the name of Mary Bruce.
I was just about to ask because I'm aware
And
of Mary Bruce.
that was her sister. And Mary Bruce had a studio above the Baby Grand
Mm.
where I did play with Nipsey Russell. Yeah. So
Wow.
the coincidences in my career are just kind of unbelievable to me. And so they had studios in Chicago only blocks from each other.
Hmm.
And then I guess Mary Bruce decided to move to New York.
Oh, so
And
they're both from Chicago, and then Mary moved.
well, I
Okay.
don't think either one of them were born in Chicago. I think they
Mm.
were more like Louisiana, just
Ah.
off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way it all started. So
Mm.
within that little dance school, it really brought me along because the first time I went, I was literally too young to pay attention to what was going on. And the only thing I paid attention to was the candy machine. Now, the class that I was going to be in is the class that I was brought to be in. And I heard the clickety clack of those taps on the floor. That did get my attention. And I
Mm.
was fascinated with that. And my dad was very diligent and my mother, but eventually, after that first visit there, my dad was taking me there. And I messed around for a while and wasn't doing what my parents wanted me to do. So they were entertaining the thought of taking me out because I was literally too young to pay attention like I should. Everything in there was distracting me.
Mm.
So I finally caught on, and my dad diligently took me home every night from dance school and made me practice on a linoleum floor in the kitchen. And I would always go back to class knowing the step. So if I
Mm.
could know it, then I could do it. And the more I did it, there was something that clicked with Sadie that was telling her something about me because then I very quickly caught up with the other kids. And the rest is kind of like history.
So you feel you kind of took to tap, so to speak?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I really took the chap. I mean, I got to be very prodigious, and so I was very popular from then on within the dance school. And Sadie used to have two recitals. The one in the Loop of Chicago downtown at the famous Civic Opera House.
Mm.
And this has already always amazed me because most dance teachers had the recitals at local school auditoriums and stuff like that. But hers were at the biggest venues in Chicago. And the other, so it was wintertime at Civic Opera House, which was very cold at that time. And in the spring, it would be at the famous Regal Theater on the
Oh
south
yeah.
side of Chicago. It was part of the proverbial Chitlin Circuit.
Yeah.
So then Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., all these bigger cities had a version of that, had a theater where the very biggest Black performers in the United States performed, and they all made that circuit, you know.
Mm.
But ours was a recital, literally a recital. So I got ensconced in that, and it just never stopped. It never stopped from then on.
So at that point, when you're getting into that, at what point were there certain performers that really impacted you that you either looked up to or were intrigued by or kind of always looked forward to
Um,
seeing?
well, then I started to, by the time I was 10 years old, I started to hear about famous performers. Now, keep in mind, there was no TV then. Everything was
Mm.
radio. And I started winning. She'd introduced me to situations, uh, especially amateur shows, wherever there was an amateur show where I could perform and win and garner a prize from.
Hmm.
That kind of evolvement went along with where I was in the way I thought as a person, you know.
Hmm.
And it also brought me to being involved with big names in show business. And and I won all the time. 98% of the time
Wow.
I won the show. So that was great incentive too. At that point I wasn't playing with the candy machine. I had gotten serious about it myself. You know, to the point as well, I'm going to win this contest. So I
No, we're
started.
talking about kind of what age in general you are.
Well,
At this.
10, I remember there's a theater called by the name of the Downtown Theater. Chicago had some very fabulous theaters, by the way. There
Yeah.
wasn't just one or two. They and I managed to I would go down to the Oriental and see Nat King Cole or somebody like that. So the more I saw those kind of people, the more I got interested. At the
Mm.
same time, correlating with that, I was being successful and I was becoming known. And so I ended up teaming up. Sadie teamed me with a little girl too by the name of Sheila Johnson, and we were winning contests. And we do songs of the day like "Hey Baba Rebop," Louis Jordan stuff, and uh, and being little and I guess what you would call cute, and emulating adults in our routine
Mm.
and being very good at it. It's like you don't follow dogs and children, animals and children,
Yeah.
So we always won the money, But that's the way I was coming along. And then by the time I got to high school, my playmates in my neighborhood, we all went to a particular high school. It was the only one to go to, and it was literally going across the tracks from my neighborhood. I went from a black elementary school to all white, 80% white Caucasian school, in high
Hmm.
school. And somebody put the word in with the choral director or somebody like that that I was talented. And so at that point, they always had a spring vacation. I mean, a spring production. From the time I did my first one, it was I just sailed through high school. I had a lot of popularity.
Mm.
I guess I was as popular as a quarterback on the football team or something like that.
Mm.
But that's the way I was evolving through high school. Then, right after that, of course, I graduated high school at 17. I was really moving along, locally in Chicago,
Mm.
and just I had access to things that kids in my neighborhood didn't have access to.
So at this
And
point, I mean, you pretty much were you pretty much feeling like this is your career, this is the thing.
yeah,
You did that.
yeah.
Were there any other interests that you had at the same time, or were we pretty much just focused on tap? You
Well, girls,
know.
for
Wasn't
sure,
gonna.
you know,
Yeah.
because the popularity brought the girls, you know, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I did decide to be an entertainer in high school.
Mm.
Nowhere to go with it because I was in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
So when I was 20, by this time I'm at the University of Illinois in Chicago, not Champaign-Urbana. And I won a
Oh yeah.
big contest. There was a DJ called Howard Miller, and he had a very popular show that he played records on. And then the Sun Times newspaper was one of the most famous papers in Chicago, either that or the
Mhm.
Chicago Tribune. And they had a big contest at Orchestra Hall, which was a very famous concert hall. There were 165 students, all college students. So I'm at the University of Illinois in Chicago, and then there was University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. There was Beloit College, I think it was in Wisconsin. But all of these
Mm.
contestants, college students, gathered at this orchestra hall. There were 165 of them, and they did everything. They were magicians, singers, and and dancers, and of which I was one of. And I sang and danced. I did my thing, and I won the contest all in one night.
Wow.
And there were prizes with that. So I got I got a paid. I got my first professional pay doing this television show. A local guy like Johnny Carson had a show. His name was Tom Duggan, and I say my first pay because it wasn't prize money from an amateur contest. I actually got a TV check from
This
doing a
is
TV show, you know.
work.
So
This
that was
is yeah.
1956, and I met Jackie Robinson on that occasion
Mm.
because he was the main feature that particular night. And not long after that, I had a job with Nabisco. That was the last 8 hour a day job I had. And my uncle was coming to California. And so I graduated Wilson Junior College that summer. And he wanted to know what I was going to do. And I said, well, I haven't decided yet. I guess I'm going to work. He says, how would you like to drive with me to California? I said, oh, that sounds great. I had to think about it, but that was so wild for me because I had never been out of Chicago any further than Gary, which was
Wow.
30 miles away, you know. So I drove out to California with him and my aunt, and it was a 2-week excursion. And I was always hustling gigs in Chicago to win prize money. So I knew how to do that. So while they were there, we were all three of us were there. I went to a nightclub and I got a gig.
Wow.
And so when that started, I'm saying to myself, well, I can do this here like I did in Chicago. But at this point, I'm almost grown, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let me ramble on. But once this started, there's a chronology, and
Yeah.
I don't want to lose
Yeah, it's
my
okay.
memory. You know,
I'll keep you.
because
But
you
what's
only
that?
asked me about one thing, and that was how I started. And I'm going
Hey,
far, you know.
go with the flow. Um, the army got in the way, right?
Huh?
The army got in the way.
Yeah, during this period because we
Yeah, I was thinking about
left after the 2 weeks, and I had a gig,
it. Mm-hmm.
and I got another gig, and I was sitting there watching this show on TV, and it was a car dealership, and they had an amateur show. Well, that was right up my alley.
Uh-huh.
And I was staying with friends of my uncle and aunt when they left. And by me staying, that's where I was staying. I was staying with them. I got my tap shoes and I got myself together and got on the streetcar and went to the amateur contest. Excuse me. And they allowed me to get in it. And I
Mm-hmm.
won that.
Wow.
So the prize was a week's engagement at the famous Moulin Rouge on Sunset Strip. So I played that gig with the four freshmen. It was very famous
Oh, I remember them.
quartet, one of my favorites, as a matter of fact. So it was always a case of always moving forward
Mm.
and not moving backward at all, you know.
Uh-huh.
And it kept pulling me to where I wanted to go. And it was happening successfully. So after I did that gig, I'd done something when when we all graduated from high school, my buddies went into the Air Force. And it's not that I didn't want to go into the armed forces, but I wanted to be a Marine. And that went out the window really, really quick. So they were no longer in the hood. We weren't running together.
Mm.
And so I did a thing that they had called volunteering the draft. That was the Army, meaning that you can volunteer and only do 2 years. It was like being drafted.
Mm-hmm.
If I volunteered like they did, when you volunteered, that was 3 years. So in the midst of all of that, I didn't want to, all of a sudden, I didn't want to do any of that because at that age, I wanted to keep, that would pull me too far away from the trajectory I'd had.
You want to track. Yeah.
But anyway, I forgot I'd volunteered the draft, and I did it especially to get armed services over with quickly in 2
Mm-hmm.
years. And I get a call from my father in Chicago while I'm still at these people's house. And he says, "You got greetings."
Oh,
I said,
boy.
"What do you mean greetings?" Greetings for what?
It's your uncle.
He said, "You've been drafted in the Army." I said, "Oh, I forgot all about that."
It's your good old Uncle Sam.
Oh, man. So I had to go into the Army, and I did not want to travel all the way back to Chicago just to enter the Army.
Uh-huh.
So I called the draft board, and they made it so that I could just go in Los Angeles there and go downtown and step across the line. I did that.
Yeah.
So that was 2 years. And then when I got out, so I'm out again. I'm still, now I'm limbo. So I'm staying with my parents. I hadn't stayed with them in a couple of years, you know. And the rest of this is a long, good story, but my dance teacher, we connected, and I did a recital for her at the Civic Opera House. And she got an entertainment columnist with the Chicago Defender to do a write-up on me.
Mm.
And the Billy Williams, you remember Billy Williams from the Sid Caesar show?
You know, I was looking that
Black-
up. I forgot his name until I realized he made the record, Sit Down and Write Myself a Letter.
That's right. It was a million.
And I remember that. Oh, yeah.
And they were probably the first Black group to go 5 years with the show, you know, because they were on the show the whole time it ran with Sid
So we
Caesar.
had a review, right? Or something like that? Billy Williams.
Yeah, they
The Billy
once-
Williams
once
review.
I got that write-up. His wife read about the write-up,
Mm-hmm.
and he had been playing Vegas with his quartet, but he wanted to go back with a young group of people and call it the Billy Williams Review.
Ah.
And he wanted all those people to be young, and that's what I would have been one of and became one of.
Mm-hmm.
I went down to the South Side and had an interview with him. I just interviewed with his wife because he was in the bedroom asleep. He never saw me. So she did the choosing, you know. And the next thing I knew, I was in a car headed for Ottawa, Canada, to the Gatineau Supper Club. And it became a road trip for me. And when we finished there, we headed for New York to do the Monticello Mountains, the Borscht Belt, played all the top.
All the Catskills, all of
Oh,
those.
the Concord, the Gatineau, not the Gatineau, but
Grossingers. And,
Grossinger's for sure. The Raleigh. The
wow.
Raleigh was the first place that I saw the Hines brothers.
Yeah, because they played around there a lot. Wow. But this is when they were kids, then, right?
I think they were residents there.
Mm.
They were just teenagers, you know.
Now, was it Hines and Dad at this point, or was it just the Hines?
No, it was still just the brothers at that point,
Just the
I
two of
think.
them. Okay.
It might have been because when I did the Concord by myself, and they were playing the lounge with
Now this is like late 50s now or early
late
60s.
50s. Yeah, by now
Yes.
it's
Sort of like.
but now is I had left the review by now. It was like 1960 or 61.
Mm.
And Marlena Shaw, O.C. Smith. And by the
Oh,
way,
C.
it
Smith.
wasn't,
Wow. I forgot that name. Haven't heard
yeah,
that name.
it wasn't only the Hines brothers. It was called Hines, Dad, and Brown.
Really? Who was
Really,
Brown? Wow.
Johnny Brown of Laughing.
Really? Wow.
Really?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Hines, Dad, and Brown.
Wow.
And they were all of them were playing the lounge, and I was there in the main room doing my thing, and I had left the review at that point, but that review served me well, man, because it took me all over the country and to Las Vegas, and that was just fabulous. And then I decided to settle in New York. I left the review at the Latin Quarter in New York, and you'll never guess who took my place when I left the review.
Um.
I gave a 2-week notice and I left. My manager was a little annoyed with me, but I had once again, here I am. I had things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So we'd been everywhere, every major nightclub in the United States. And I wanted to get out on my own because Billy Williams' wife became my manager.
Really.
But it got to the point where I'm growing with the review, and I was one of the main parts in the review. And there I am in New York. I says, well, look, man, I got to stop coming to New York. I need to stay here.
Mm.
I mean, I got enough. I love this review, but I kind of got enough of that. I got to get back on track. So I left the review there. And that's when I decided to reside in New York. So I did I lived in New York for 10 years after that.
So don't leave me hanging. Who replaced you?
Jimmy Slide.
Oh, wow. So Jimmy Slide replaced you in the Billy Williams review?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, once I left, they had 2 weeks. I put in a 2-week notice. So he wanted to fill that gap with a dancer,
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know. I was walking down Broadway before they left the Latin Quarter, and one of the members of the review was walking by me. He said, "Hey, man, we got a tap dancer." I said, "Oh, that's great. Who'd you get?" And he said, "Jimmy Slide." I says, and I'd never heard of him.
Mm.
I didn't meet Jimmy until he was out here with 1,000 Years of Jazz.
Mm.
And I
Wow.
thought he was just fabulous. I took my sons with me to see him. And I thought he was just fabulous, man. I love to watch that man dance.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. He was something.
Yeah. And we ultimately became friends, after that. But
but in later years, did you talk to him about him being your replacement?
I don't think we talked about it much. When we talked about it, we talked about it from the perspective that we had both been in the show.
Yeah.
And so he would talk about people in the show.
Mm.
And then because the show didn't stay long after I left.
Mm.
Yeah, I think Billy passed away, and no, he didn't pass away in New York. He passed away in Chicago. But anyway, I left just in time because it kind of lost its steam, and it had a lot of steam. It was just great, man.
Wow.
But
had his record come out during that time? I'm going to write myself a letter. Because that's like 57 or so.
Yeah, after he left the Sid Caesar show, I think the record came out in 56, and it was a million-selling hit.
Yeah, I remember that record. Yeah.
We really used it in the show because after he would sing it himself, we had a quartet in the show that would back him up as his quartet did,
Mm.
And so he was riding on his hit, but he embellished himself by having a lot of young people in
Yeah.
shows out of sight. And,
Yeah.
I was so happy to be there in that show, man.
Wow. So you leave and then you have your years in New York, right? Your years in New York.
Yeah, I stayed in the Forest Hotel for about a month. I mean, a year. And then I finally left, so I got myself an apartment on 57th Street between 9th and 10th Avenue.
Mm.
And so once I got that and started cooking my own
So,
food.
so the process of getting work at that time must have been interesting, right? In terms of your regimen to get out there and
Yeah,
find
it
out
was a
what's going,
big,
find out what's going on, and it must have been an interesting time too, in terms of what was happening.
well, yeah, it was a big hustle. I was hustling myself, and I was able to get a manager in 1962, and she hooked me up with General Artist Corporation. So at that point, that was really a big time agency. It was
Mm-hmm.
pretty much the equal of William Morris.
Mm.
So I was with them for a while, and they got me gigs. I did South America, down one side and up the other, and until I got to one spot in South America. I can't remember where it was, but they cut the tour off. I mean, I was by myself, but I lost some of the gigs because there were uprisings in the locations that I was going to.
Mm.
And so I came back, and she said to me, she said, "I'd like to send you to an audition." I said, "For what?" And she says it was Golden Boy. I said, "Well, that's Sammy Davis Jr.'s thing, right?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I don't want to do it because I'd been compared to him so long,
Mm.
during that trajectory with Billy, my stature and, playing Las Vegas, they were writing my name in the same column as his, and I just didn't want to get caught up into that, just like being in his shadow. It was almost inevitable. I was a single performer. I was diminutive. I was dressing sharp, and I sang and danced, and he played all the
Yeah.
instruments. I just thought he was a fabulous entertainer, but I didn't want to be that close to him,
Mm.
doing whatever. But I ended up going to the audition anyway. And who do I run in but Johnny Brown?
Heinz and Brown.
Yeah, that's Johnny Brown,
Oh.
and who else? And at that point, the show was almost together. And what's the young lady from, what's the show with Jimmy? I got that old age mental thing. Um,
She's on TV now, you say, or
no, Walona. And that's what that name's coming. What was the name? Jeanette
oh,
Dubois.
oh, Janet
Jeanette
DuBois. Yeah,
Dubois.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I had done a thing with, at that point, I was doing anything to keep myself going. New York, you had to hustle, And I got a call to go and do a thing, Three Penny Opera. And actually, I was doing the lights for Sammy. And
Mm.
he was doing a street singing thing. And so, and he was writing Yes, I Can at the same time. And so I did that. And at the same time, they were putting Golden Boy together. So all of that was simultaneously, And I didn't do Golden Boy. Although when I walked on that stage after coming in from that tour in South America that my manager sent me to, I walked out on the stage. I was in a gray suit, and I hadn't started singing yet, but they directed me over to the other side of the stage, and Hilliard Elkins, the producer, was on that side,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't know I heard him, but he said to his assistant, he says, and I haven't done anything yet. He says, "I want this guy for Sammy's understudy." He didn't know.
Really?
Oh yeah, I overheard that, and that was the end of that for me. I don't care what they did. I wasn't going to be understudy, you know,
Yeah.
because I was working. I just came
Hmm.
from working, and I was doing my gigs on Long Island and different places. So as an understudy, man, you get paid something like $97 a week, and you got to sit there and wait till somebody gets sick to go on.
Yeah. And then when
So
you
at
go
that
on,
point,
people are disappointed because the other person wasn't there sometimes.
yeah, but I did end up doing that in UB with Gregory and Maurice. I flew all the way from here in California after I settled out here
Mm.
to go back and do UB. So I was with it for about 4 months.
Mm.
And I went on for Gregory to do and did Hot Feet, one of the biggest numbers he had in the
Oh, yeah, I
show.
remember that number. Wow.
So the New York years were just fabulous too, man. Just
So
I
during
can't
those years,
complain.
when you were doing your thing, what thoughts went into how you put together your act or your thing, in terms of what's going to make it you as opposed to somebody else, choices to make and in terms of singing, dance, or what have you,
Well, the one
presentation.
thing the one thing I couldn't escape, no matter how I might try, and my diminutive size and pretty much doing the kind of things that Sammy would do because we were all kind of doing that. He's doing a lot of
Mm.
things Sinatra would do, and that was the style of the music. You know what I'm saying? And my
Mm.
arrangements were written, for those kind of things. Um, I just wanted to sing and dance real good and
Mm.
get response to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, in answer to your question about how I put them together, I kind of mentioned that to you a while back. I had so much fun performing, man, and I love the improvisation about it for me.
Mm.
That's what made it fun for me. Running in situations and I'd have to adjust.
Mm.
You don't practice improvisation. Uh, that's always a surprise.
Yeah. But also, get it takes experience to be able to do it well, in terms of,
Well, I found out I did, with all of that show business from the time I was a little boy,
yeah,
that lent itself well to even, excuse me, trying to do that.
yeah.
But I got a kick out of it. Every TV show I did, Tonight Show or Griffin Show, uh, it was it came on at the last minute. I remember I had an answering service in New York, and I got a call from my answering service to no, I called into my answering service, and they said the Tonight Show wants you. I said what? They said yeah, they
Mm.
need to call them. So I called my manager, and she says, "Can you get over at 5 o'clock?" I says, "When?" She says, "You're doing your show tonight."
Wow.
Now that's what I'm talking about in, you know, coincidences like that.
Yeah.
You walk, all of a sudden there it was. So you got to be prepared for
Got
it.
to be ready.
I remember walking in there with my music for the rehearsal. Skip Henderson was the band leader, and I'm a big jazz aficionado. I've been that since I was in high school. So I knew jazz, and I knew who played where, I knew the bassy band musicians. And I walked into the rehearsal and I laid my music down on Skip Henderson's piano. He said, let's get to it. And I looked up in the trumpet section, and there was Snooky Young of the bassy band, Clark Cherry of the bassy band, and the Duke Ellington band, and Doc Severinsen. He wasn't the Doc Severinsen. He was one of the men in the trumpet section. You know,
Mm.
O'Shaughnessy on drums, Milt Hinton on bass. I said, God, man, I and these guys are getting ready to play this music, man. I had never heard that music played like that ever.
Wow.
And then the
Wow.
Merv Griffin, well, I did Merv about 10 times, but that was the same kind of band, you know, Ray Brown on bass and people like that. And then when I
Mm,
got out here, I'd been here for a while in California. This was 1980, and I was going to get my dancing shoes fixed at a place called Dan D. They did all of Hollywood's. If Fred Astaire everybody had fixed their shoes there, you know.
mm-hmm.
And I think I had to get something sewn on my shoes. So I parked in front of the Hollywood Palace because there's a parking meter there. Just
Mm,
happened to be in front of the Hollywood Palace. Well, that's where the Merv Griffin Show was coming from.
mm.
And that was right across the street from Capitol Records. And I get out and I'm in my tennis shoes and jeans. And when I got out of the car, I see Merv Griffin coming from around the back with two people with him. When he spotted me, he says, "Kim Cunningham, what are you doing out here?" I said, "I live here." He says, "Why haven't you done the show?" I said, "Because nobody's asked." He said, "Well, let's go and do it now. Do it now." I said, "Oh no, I can't do it now. I'm saying I'm not dressed, you know." He says, "That's all right. Come in and do it anyway."
And you did it?
I did it. You got it.
Wow.
You got it.
Wow.
And so I get there and I had to call my wife and I had to show, can you get that tan suit and that dark brown tie and get those tan shoes? I said, and there's a couple of pieces of music there. There's some do
Yeah.
that. You'll see them real quick. She had to bring all that stuff to me.
Wow.
So
Wow.
everything I did in those two things, that singing thing, were improvisation.
Wow. Show business.
That
Show
is show
business.
business, man.
Show business. We got
Yeah.
some images here. We maybe look at some of these pictures and talk a little bit about where
I
each
hope it
one.
didn't wear you out, man, but it's been such an exciting time for me in the business that I really love to talk about it, man, because
Yeah.
I know a lot of people didn't have that kind of experience. So, you know.
Well, here's let's see who's that?
You know, when I was talking about those tap shoes as a little boy,
Yeah.
that's me. That's the very first dancing outfit I had, and I had little black patent leather tap shoes on. So I have to be about 6 or 7 there, about 6, I think. Yeah,
Wow.
that was the beginning.
Now we're hopping around in time, but I don't know if people can recognize this. But this is from a
Well, I'm
movie,
the
right?
second one in that line, and that's a dance called the One Man Dance. That was 1983, and that was Francis Ford Coppola's movie,
The Cotton
Cotton
Club.
Club.
Yeah.
And that's the One Man Dance. And in that scene, we were walking on the stage to do the dance.
And that's Aldi in the front, right? Aldi Lewis
Yeah,
in the front. Yeah, the one.
Rudy Garner after me, and that's my partner in Tip Tap and Toe following him. And I don't remember, and I can't remember the other two guys in the back.
And I think I have another shot because we'll explain what Tip Tap and Toe is, what you're referencing there. That must have been some experience, that Cotton Club movie, because that was
Man,
a
that was a great
whole.
experience. There was more fun back behind the scene than the movie.
Yeah, they should make a movie
Oh
about
man,
that.
that was an experience. It really was.
Wow. Wow. And here's a publicity shot.
That's as I moved along. I think that was shot in about 1982.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a single performer at that time, you know.
Yeah. Oh.
That's another little boy picture. So I'm 10 years old there, and I was still with Sadie at the time.
Mm,
But that's how long I've been a soloist, you know.
wow.
That's of course that's Diane Carroll, and we were on a cruise. That was another surprise. There was the comedian by the name of, I think his last name was Barbuti. I don't know
Oh, I
why.
remember him. Dick
Huh?
Bob. Was it Dick
Yeah,
Bob Booty or something like that?
I don't think it was Dick, but
Well, with any Bob Booty, yeah.
see him on TV, and I replaced him on that show, and Diane was a star. And this was
Mm,
on an enormous cruise ship with Royal Caribbean. I had been doing cruises anyway, you know, but
mm-hmm.
and so she her dressing room was right next to mine, and that's both of us just before we went on to do our performances, you know. So I opened for her.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's Cotton Club.
With,
So that's
with
very,
Gregory.
yeah, yeah.
And you're in your outfit to be the Tip Tap and Toe, right? Is that
No.
okay?
Well, I'm sorry. Yes, 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 yes,
Yeah, yeah. I
yes.
think there was another shot to clarify, Ian, but that's
Yeah, that's yeah, that is. Of course, we just took a shot, you know, we were backstage and we took a picture together,
yeah.
you know. You know, you're backstage and some people say, Gregory,
Get the
we're going to
shot.
get a picture, you know. Yeah,
And that's Mr. Coles.
that's my main man. He was like I don't want to call him a daddy, but certainly an uncle. He was a lot of people's uncle. Man. He was
By
quite
the way, Honey Coles. So yeah.
yeah, he
So
was quite a personality. And we were in Alaska doing some dancing and teaching. He was emceeing the show at the time. He wasn't dancing because he had not been well. And I was there to do the show. Savion Glover was on the show, and Diane Walker, and I think it was only Len Daly on that occasion. Yeah, so I think I was getting ready to go on to do my bit. You know, he's going to be emceeing. So and that's Mr. Ray.
Mr. Ray.
I did what used to be called a club date for the Lynx, and they were honoring him. He was an honorary for the fundraising occasion, you know. Ray said to me, he said, oh man, he said, I was thinking those feet. He said, you got feet. I said, okay. I'd like to have some of that stuff behind what I'm doing. I said, well, if I can catch up with you and you can use me, I'm available. You know. And that was
with the Redd Foxx.
A dear friend of mine, man.
Wow.
He really was. I was working with him at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas with Prince Spencer of the Step Brothers. Prince and I, that was the only time in my professional life I teamed with somebody.
With Prince?
Prince.
Oh.
Yeah, and we performed together, literally, you know. And he was one of my first influences.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to see the Step Brothers all the time, and he was one of my favorite dancers, man. And we were friends till the day he passed away. Very close.
Wow. See, it's Redd Foxx.
Yep.
Good old Red.
Yep. And that's from Sammy from the movie Tap.
Yeah, because I see the sign electronics. I guess that's the street, one of the street scenes. Because for me, I'm wondering, where does that electronics that I'm going? I bet you this is from Tap.
Yeah, that was Tap.
Yeah.
We're smiling, Poitier and I. I'm down about a step from him because we were coming out of the church, and he was behind me. And
Sidney Poitier.
That was at Brock Peters' funeral.
Did you know Brock? Did you work with Brock at all?
Yeah, I did David Dance Before the Lord at the 1984 Olympics Arts Festival for Brock and his wife Dee Dee. I did it.
Yeah, I was familiar with him as an actor, then didn't realize he sang. And then he was on the Tonight Show once. I actually have a couple of photos I took of him singing on the Tonight Show when I was working there.
Well, David Danced Before the Lord, he did that with Duke Ellington.
Yeah.
I danced David Dance. He called me to dance the song Come Sunday. And that was made popular by Bunny Briggs. He was
right.
Yeah. So I did it 6 straight nights. Yeah. And that was backstage at that occasion. That's another boxing dance.
Sugar Ray Robinson, in case people
Yes,
don't know,
sir.
Sugar Ray. Now he knew how to move, right?
He not only did he know how to move, he knew how to tap dance, and
Yeah,
Henry Latang taught him.
that's what I heard.
Yeah, it was long before my time, but yeah.
And did you ever go to his place, Sugar Ray's in Harlem?
No, but I went to the barber shop across from his place. I never went in there though.
Mm,
I've never been a drinker, so I had no reason to go in a bar. Matter of fact, I didn't like to go into them
mm,
because you're supposed to drink, and I didn't drink.
mm.
But I've danced behind the bar at many occasions.
So you danced there, you just.
I've seen more people fall off bars, man, from the stage. Get so drunk. And this is at the Olympics Art. Oh, no, no, no. This is Minneapolis with Harold and Fayard.
Mm.
They were being honored, and I was performing on it.
Go Nicholas Brothers.
Yeah.
Here's
That's
Cotton
Tip
Club
Tap and
again.
Toe.
Now just explain to people who Tip Tap and Toe were, because
Well,
you're
Tip
playing
Tap and
them.
Toe were a trio of dancers, well known, and Henry called me in mainly to impersonate Raymond, the slide man of the trio of Tip Tap and Toe. He was just great with slides and stuff.
Mm.
And so I knew how to do that, and Henry says, I want you to come in and do Raymond. I said, okay, you got it. It's money.
And who are the other two dancers, right?
To my left in the photograph is Luther Fontaine, and to the right is Jan Mickens. And at the time we were shooting the movie, they would leave my one and only,
Yeah.
which was Honey and Tommy Choon. And so Henry put the three of us together.
Yeah, I was one of the millions of people that auditioned for that film. And
Wow.
yeah, it was
Got
yeah,
into it?
yeah, I auditioned 3 times. First for Tap, and there was a group of us with Henry Latang and George Faison was staging it, and I was one of maybe only 2 dancers who were not in my one and only, so they all knew the thing. And then I auditioned for the swing dance thing, and then there was something else with all these callbacks. And I remember going to rehearsal halls, tons of people performing, and I was aware of Luther Fontaine, Jan Mickens I'd seen a few times, and there were people who said when they saw me dance, they felt I reminded them of Jan. They felt there was something
Oh, wow.
similar between and I always liked how he danced, how he held himself, dancing. I never knew him well, but I remember people saying they
He was a
found it.
nice man. He really was.
Yeah, he seemed like a really good soul, but yeah. It is one
I
last
remember-
image. Oops.
Go ahead.
No, just kind of this other image of one of your records that you made.
Yeah. So that's a song called Money. And that was my first record contract as a single singer, performer.
Mm.
And that was Cap Records. And so when you sign with a label, they look for material for you. And this came up, turned out in retrospect to be a Barry Gordy song. I think he wrote that with, wasn't Barrett Strong, it was somebody else. Maybe it was. But anyway, that went to number 20 with a red bullet on the chart, on
Wow.
the Cashbox chart. Yeah.
Yeah, I was mentioning to you before that I remember when the single came out and Barrett Strong sang it. I think I was in junior high school when it came out. And it was 2 years later I found out that Barry Gordy wrote the tune. But I think I might have cut you off. You were starting to talk about something when I mentioned Jan Mickens and
I remember something happened. We were all union members, and we had to rehearse out in the hallway sometimes because we danced on a platform, and they changed platforms during the process of being in rehearsals for it. And I was dancing on the platform, out in the hallway. And Richard Gere was walking by, and Diane Lane, and different people, because they had to come by that way because they were practicing dancing too in the same studio, but not at that time. But they had to walk by there, and I was up there on it dancing. And so this union representative came up to me and he says, how long you been dancing up there? I says, I just got up here today. He says, but I mean in the movie. I says, well, we have to dance on this platform every day. He says, I got to check into this. Anyway, it turned out to be hazard pay, retrospective. For as long as I'd been dancing on that, I should have been getting extra pay for being on the platform.
You know,
and Jan and Luther didn't know that, and they said, "Man, we heard something about this platform." I said, "What did you hear?" He said, "Are we supposed to get extra pay?" Yeah, I said, "Well, he approached me about it." He said, "Oh, great!" So they ended up getting extra pay, you know.
You know, that's interesting because I mentioned I auditioned for the film, and now that you mention that, I seem to remember something went down. I got called back a lot, and weren't going to pay me, and something that the union intervened in terms of monies that I wound up getting. Some of us wound up getting because I think a lot of it was like they didn't know what they were doing. Francis Ford Coppola and them. They just had us doing all these different things and coming back or whatever. So I think the union probably was really on top of what was going on for that film. I'd forgotten about that till you mentioned it. There was something. I just have a vague memory. There was something where suddenly I got this extra check. And I never even got in the film, but it was because of all these auditions that they. So that union, you know, comes in handy. So maybe we could look at you performing a little bit, because I've got a couple of clips here. So let's see. This is let me see what I have here. The well, here's the one from Olympic Arts Festival, I think. Let me get this straight. So hold on a second.
That's where the Nicholas brothers and I were, because they dedicated a night to them. So I was glad they got a chance to see me do my little thing, you know.
Yes, I think this two parts is like first you see a clip from Olympic Arts Festival, and then the next bit is Minneapolis Tap Festival.
Well, that's not the full dance. That's in a black shirt and black.
Like a little bit.
Right. That's an interlude from my routine. And I stopped the music and did this piece of business, you know. But I never did get the whole piece that I did, you know.
All right. Well, we'll get to see. Let's check it out.
Enough of that. Lately, I find myself out gazing at stars, hearing guitars like someone in love. Lately, the things you do astound me, but mostly whenever you're around me. Lately, I seem to walk as though I had wings, bump into things like someone in love, and each time I look at you, I'm limp as a glove and feeling like someone in love.
Mr. Skip Cunningham, ladies and gentlemen. Skip Cunningham.
Thank you. Lately, I seem to walk as though I had wings, bumping into things like someone in love, and each time I look at you, I'm limp as a glove and feeling like someone, I'm feeling like someone in love, feeling like someone in love.
Mr. Skip Cunningham.
That was nice.
Thank you. That I'll never forget.
Boy,
I
that was
learned
that.
about, I learned about doing that an hour before I did it. I've
That,
never
that
done. Go ahead.
an hour before? You mean performing?
Hour before.
What happened?
Well, somebody, I won't go into what the real reason was, but somebody could, I took somebody's place who was there already, who was supposed to be in that spot. And I was not supposed to do anything. I wasn't there to do that. And
Oh.
and so I was asked, could I go on? Now, the stars of that was the band.
Mm.
Every time I see that, I know exactly what was going on. That band followed me as if they had been performing with me all my life,
Wow.
because every last thing I did was improvisation. Every step, I've never done that before or since again.
Wow.
The way that was, so it was choreographed, thought about, performed, all in one session.
Wow.
I gave the band the key to the song, and from then on, they just followed me all the way, whatever I did.
That's showbiz. That's professional.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That's the thing. You're ready to show up. You know.
Yeah.
Well, there's so much that we could cover, but as I'm winding down, are there any? I mean, you've still been active up to. I think I first met you, 2009, Traditions and Tap that Avi Miller and Ophir Ben did. Of
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah. They gave me an award. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it gave you many awards. I think you got one in Chicago, the Juba Award, and then you're in
yeah.
the tap dance. You're in what is it, Hall of Fame? You got an award for let me get the proper Rhythm Tap Hall of Fame Master Tapper Award, and L.A. Tap Festival Leonard Reed Longevity Award.
Hmm.
Of more recent dancers that you've seen out there, I mean, how do you feel about some of the people performing out there now? There's a few generations of people have been doing stuff. Any thoughts on them? Any in terms of who you've
Well,
seen and whatever?
this is tap dance today, and the big problem I have with it is these young dancers that I think. Well, you asked me who. I'm going to mention a couple. They're so good. They just really dance good, better than some of us in many regards. And they don't have the venues to do it in that we did.
Mm.
There were all kinds of venues, nightclubs. Every nightclub had a show, and they'd have a tap dancer that could open it. They had TV shows that could go on like I did, and we just don't have that now. So it's been relegated to tap festivals,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not the same thing. That's a learning. That that's where you teach tap, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the young hot shots who can do it. And I call them that because they are hot shots, man. They're good. But there are a few of them. There's a performer who reminds me of myself and a lot of people, and that's Ted Levy.
Oh yeah, Ted.
He can sing and dance too.
He's from Chicago too, right?
We were both from Chicago. He
Yeah.
went to a different, much later in life. He went then with me. He went to a tap school on the South Side, like I did. It used to be Sammy Dyer, and he was kind of competitive with the dance school that I was in. Sammy Dyer and Teddy Bruce basically did the same thing. And he flashed in my mind. I haven't seen him much perform,
Mm-hmm.
but the one time I did see him once or twice, it just reminded me of Sammy Davis, Gregory, or me, or
Yeah, he's
anybody
got
else
that thing.
of
Yeah.
that ilk.
Yeah, yeah.
And the tapper, who impresses me a lot, is Jason Samuel Smith.
Mm.
He's extremely creative, and he's got some serious tap dancing feet. And this young lady I like a lot. I always have a hard time pronouncing her name. There seems to be so many ways to do it. Her last name is Giselle
Yeah, Iadeli.
Ayadeli, that's the way you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like her dancing a lot. And I'm not gonna pick out many people like that because I don't want to think I missed somebody, you know.
Yeah. So
But
many
those are the
folks.
ones uh, that remind me of what I used to like to see, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the venues are different, but there are attempts to do things like the Joyce Theater, which is normally we just do a lot of modern dance. To have a new director, and he's been having a lot of tap. In fact, Ayadeli has a performance running online now through April there, and Jason has done stuff there. So there's some venues are trying to open it up. It's not the same as, like you say, back in the day in terms of clubs and
Well, okay,
opportunities.
so, and that's what I mean.
Yeah.
There were nightclubs in every major city, and there
Mhm.
were theaters in every major city.
Yeah.
And the theater shows always had a tap dancer. Even the comedian could tap dance. Mount Mabley could do a shuffle, you know.
Yeah.
It was just the dance of the day in the black genre of entertainment.
Mm.
And so it was like, and it's just different now.
Mm.
The whole ambiance of, you know.
Yeah.
So you know, not only had Step Brothers, you had the Berry Brothers, you had the Sammy Davis Jr.'s Will Maston Trio before Sammy became Sammy, who he is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of dance groups, and every one of the dancers could dance. I mean, in Cotton Club, I was depicting Raymond, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but he had two other dancers on either side of him, just like I had uh, Jan and the dancers that danced with me, you know.
Yeah.
So, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, there was Peg Leg Bates who was sensational, man.
Yeah.
You know, you would see him and Lil Buck on the Ed Sullivan Show.
I mean,
Both of them.
I often tell people when I grew up in the '50s, I saw all these people on TV. Peg
Yeah,
Leg.
yeah, yeah.
I
That's what I
remember the
mean.
Will Masson Trio before Sammy, before the accident and all. I remember seeing that.
That's the
I
first
remember
time I saw him.
seeing
My
it.
mother can't call me out of another room to come and see it. You know.
Yeah, so I would see the stuff on TV, and it'd be the Milton Berle show, the Step Brothers, and
Yeah,
and of all these shows, like Milton Berle would get up and do a few
yeah.
steps, and Bob Hope would do some steps because everybody knew how to dance
That's
at the
right.
point. And even I would go to the Radio City Music Hall, and I think
Mhm.
I might have seen Peg Leg Bates there live, perform.
Right.
So this is the '50s into the early '60s.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
around at that point, so I remember seeing.
I first saw Teddy Hill on the Kate Smith Show,
Mm,
and he was my influence when I was in high school.
mm,
Teddy Hill. I liked him a lot. As a matter of fact, I do a semblance of some of his stuff because that's how much I liked it, you know.
yeah.
And Baby Lawrence, I wasn't aware of until I was well into adulthood. I
Mm.
wasn't, as a matter of fact, when I got to New York, people like Mudbone and Baby Lawrence and Ralph Brown,
Mm,
the copacetics made me aware of them, you
mm,
know. And then, you know, I was on the tail end, and ultimately I became copacetic, so to speak, through Honey and Charlie,
mhm.
you know. So I was so happy to meet them, man. And I forgot to mention Coles and Atkins.
Yeah,
I fell in love with their dancing on the radio. I mean, on a recording, A Night
really.
at the Apollo with Leonard Reed and Moms Mabley.
Mm.
And I was so happy when I finally met them, man.
Yeah, Colson Atkins. Well,
And they,
any final words or anything you haven't brought up you want to talk about, or just kind of?
well, I don't want to take up a whole lot of time with you, but I'm glad you asked me to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed this. And we can do a part two at some point, because there's
Yeah,
so
well,
much. But thank you for agreeing to do this because it means a lot to
my
me.
pleasure. My pleasure, man.
Yeah,
I had a whole career on cruise ships, man.
yeah, wow.
Oh yeah, some of the biggest. That picture with Diane Carroll, we were on a cruise ship,
Mm,
you know. And that particular ship Monarch of the Seas with the Caribbean. I decided to go up into the balcony. They said that showroom had a balcony, man.
Mm-hmm.
It was so far from the stage where she and I were standing. When I got up there she stood. And that's the first time I met her.
Mm.
And I remember saying to her, I said, wow, I've enjoyed your career so much, because I remember her from Chance of a Lifetime with Dennis, I forget his name, but she won like 6 weeks in a row.
Well, Chance of a Lifetime was a show. It was like a
It was an amateur show.
an amateur, yeah, like a Ted Mack kind of thing.
Would compete, and she won 6 weeks in a row, man.
Wow.
That's when I first saw her, and I was reminding her of that. But then we looked down at the stage. It looked like a matchbox. She says, "Can you believe anybody can see us from up here?" I said, "I can hardly see it myself." And everything was empty up there, but we were standing and just, when I got up there, she was standing there already,
Mm.
And you run into people like that in show business. And that's what I was trying to say from the very beginning. You would run into people like that as you started to grow in the business.
Yeah.
So
did you at some point, you started the interview talking about, being young and what the track was. At some point you must have gone, yeah, I never knew I'd meet such and such, or here I am standing next to such and such.
Oh, every time it would happen, I'd say that when I won that contest, I'm meeting Jackie Robinson, man. That's an icon of Black history,
Yeah.
And jazz, when I think about how much I love bebop and progressive jazz, and on one of those on our recitals, there's a man named Captain Walter Diet, and he was the band master at one of the high schools. I think it was Dunbar High School, but Nat King Cole went to that high school. Dinah Washington went to that high school. Marla Gibbs went to that high school. And in his band, when they would play, I'm too young to understand. I didn't care who was out there playing their music, But the jazz musicians who came out of that school, Johnny Griffin, some of the most famous jazz musicians you came from, Nat King Cole. So that's when I say that's the story of my life. The ambience of all of that, I was in it and didn't know that's what I was in.
Yeah. You were doing what you had to do. You were in the midst of it.
Yeah. Wow. But you don't understand what you were in until it's behind you.
Yeah.
And then the retrospective comes up. You said, "Oh, I remember them,"
Yeah.
I won a show at the Downtown Theater called, it was an amateur show, and the first prize winners, I forget how many weeks it ran. The first prize winners, first prize was only $15. But back then, $15 was $15,
$15.
And I was dressed up I did a routine emulating Bill Bojangles Robinson. So I had a white top, silk hat, white tails, and my dance teacher had taught me how to twirl a baton. And Joe Lewis's wife, Marva, her name was then Spalding by then. She wasn't with Joe anymore. And she was singing. She sang on the show. And I won first place and she won second place. And as I'm sitting here talking to you right now, when you think of Joe Lewis, and this is his wife as far as I'm concerned, and she's singing. And I almost didn't want to win anything, and I won the show. I was on a small guilt trip,
Joe,
for a minute. And I won that $15. Well, the rest of the story is, you went so many weeks, and then they had a grand prize for the first prize winners. And the grand prize was $300. But wherever you were in that line of people, you had to win to all of the, I mean, had to wait till all those people won. And I couldn't wait, man, because $300 to me was like a fortune in 1946.
Wow.
You know, so Lionel Hampton came through with his band in the intro. And the song Flying Home was a hit with Illinois Jacket doing the famous solo. And it was a giant hit in the Black community. He was just selling off the whole Chitlin circuit from New York to LA, you know. And I'm just a little boy, 10 or 11. And my father came to me, he came to me with the newspaper. And he says, well, you're not going to be able to win that $300 if that's what you're thinking of doing. Lionel Hampton came through there, man, and the people went so crazy of him playing that song that they tore up the theater. Wow. The seats. Wow. And I can remember what he would do is he'd start the song he'd be playing, and then Illinois Jacket would start honking. And by now, people are going crazy. And they walk down the steps from the stage and down the aisle to the back of the theater, through the lobby, and down the other side. And the joint was rocking.
Literally.
Literally. And when they got to the stage, and you know, and so I was so disappointed, man. I was so disappointed. And when I ended up working with him, I told him about that story. Yeah, he came out and he was doing the Paul Masson wine. And he saw me in Evolution of the Blues in Chicago. And he came backstage and he was just complimenting me. He liked tap dances evidently because other people had tap danced on his shows too. He said, man, you knocked me out. And he stammered, you know? Yeah. He said, well, he said, you live in Chicago? I said, no. I said, I live in California. He said, well, I'm gonna come out. I'm coming out to California. And when he came out, he had his secretary call me to do the tour with him. Wow. I was on cloud 9.
Wow. Boy, you were flying high.
Look, and we were in the dressing room, and I told him so. He said, oh, Gates, if I had that money in my pocket, I'd give it to you. I said, I was so disappointed. I was only 11 years old. He said, yeah, we sure did come through here. I know you're not lying.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you know, like I said, we could keep going, but I think I'm going to wrap it up for this really
let's
great.
Wrap it up, man. I've taken a lot of your time.
This great interview, and you know, your history yourself, and you know, you're an icon. So you know, I'm happy to have met you and to be able to, you know, consider you a friend.
Well,
so thank you
we
again
are
for
friends
this.
now, man. I am so glad you had
so thank you, and thank you for watching, everybody. And till the next time, peace.